Jedi.
Oh, welcome to Tano Cast.
Dang, what an intro, man.
Oh, I am no Jedi, but apparently she is a Jedi. Because
Boy, I mean, now I'm super confused, you know?
Make up your mind. What do you want?
Which one? Are you or are you not? Do you
want
think
Chinese food or do you want Wendy's? I mean, Ahsoka, it's just, what are we dealing with here?
I was curious, do you think Rosario Dawson actively watched all of the Ahsoka material to try to play more like her?
I think you have to.
Right?
I mean, and that makes me kind of respect her a little more because it is a lot of material out there. But I don't know if you picked up on this. Disney Plus going into this show had the Essential Ahsoka series where they're like, oh, if you want to get caught up, just watch these episodes. And I was like, oh, that's kind of nice of you guys. But
see, I'm going to have to do that because as we talk about this show, I was very confused because I haven't seen Rebels.
Yeah, I'm very interested to dive into this with you because I am 2 seasons into Rebels. So I'm just about to start season 3. And going into Ahsoka, Disney and everybody around this show was like, oh, you don't need to see Rebels to watch this. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll be fine. I am so glad I watched the first 2 seasons of Rebels because I feel like I have an introduction. Where do you stand? Were you just out in left field just being like, who the hell are these people?
Absolutely. So I watched it with my daughter and we were watching the Clone Wars together. So again, we kind of know who Ahsoka is and everything, but neither of us have seen Rebels. And so I was like, hey, you want to come watch Ahsoka with me? And she's like, absolutely. So we sit on the couch and halfway through it, we're looking at each other and we're like, what is going on? Who are these people? They all seem to know each other already. And I don't know what's going on. It was rough. But yeah, I like it so far.
It's interesting because they are such deep characters. And I felt like there should have been a little more of a recap in the beginning of being almost even if you treated it as Clone Wars of being previously in the Star or just something like that. But I guess technically we got the scroll, which I thought was an interesting touch. We're going old school Star Wars, which if I were to describe episode 1 of Ahsoka, it's just old school Star Wars. I felt like I was watching Phantom Menace. I was just I absolutely love this, man. It was great.
Yeah, what's funny is right before, when I first started it and it was kind of going through the beginning credits and stuff, before it even got to the scrolling in my head, I was like, you know what I don't see anymore on the Star Wars shows is that scrolling. Why do they, that's weird. And then all of a sudden it started doing it and I was like, oh, but it was different. The intro looked different. It almost looked more menacing.
Yeah.
More darker or sinister with it being red.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask that question to you. Did they do that for Obi-Wan or Mando or any of that?
I don't remember seeing it for Obi-Wan.
I don't either.
And I don't remember seeing it for Mando.
Yeah, maybe somebody can comment and be like, yes, they do. Or I guess we can go check it out,
No, somebody comment because I've got enough going on in my life. I'm not going to go back.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
The show obviously is taking place in the New Republic era. So this is after Return of the Jedi, which technically is where we're getting the Mando and the Book of Boba Fett, and it's an era that we really don't have a lot about, and we're all kind of learning about it together. But God, man, I keep going back to Phantom Menace because it felt like Phantom Menace. The movie starts with 2 mysterious Jedi showing up on a ship, and I was just waiting for the racist Trade Federation people to come out and be like, not the Jedi, and just completely go off. But I loved it. I just loved the way that they started this off with oh shoot, we've got some real baddies, I guess is kind of the best way to put it.
What was interesting was first off, Captain sitting in the most uncomfortable chair I've ever seen in my entire life. And I did want to comment on the fact, and I think we've had a conversation about this regarding the newer movies were filmed longer ago in sort of timeline, and then you have the prequels that are the older films, but they're newer technology. I thought it was kind of cool that they made sure that they were doing even though how cheesy the Republic uniforms looked, especially in 4K or whatever it is, they still were keeping that same exact style. Mm-hmm. They're keeping everything that kind of looked the way it did in the 70s when 4, 5, and 6 was out. Since this is supposed to be right after 6, I mean, they still kept all the type of style, like the little command center that the captain was sitting on looked like such like a cheap, like maybe like a HVAC hose or something. Like I was like,
Yeah.
what is this? But that's how it looked back in the older films, and so they're keeping true with the timeline. But yeah, the Jedi people, I'm confused, very confused about them, because clearly they got red lightsabers, clearly bad guys, but nobody once called them Sith.
Right. I
And I was like,
in my notes I wrote down anti Jedi because I was like,
hmm.
I really don't feel like they're Sith. I was like, I didn't get that vibe. Um, they do have like the rule of two going on where there's a master and apprentice, but there's something that they say in one of the episodes where they're like, "Why are we doing this?" And it's just like, "Oh, we're doing this for money." Like 100%. Like we're doing this for money. So I didn't really think that they were Sith, but yeah, I wrote down their names because I was watching on subtitles and it was Balin and Shin, which Balin, dude, like badass character, like absolutely loved him, and unfortunately the guy that played him just passed away. So it's like,
Oh, no way.
yeah. So spoiler alert, I don't think this guy's making it past Ahsoka, but like
Yikes.
he's a dope character. Like I was like,
See,
man,
I agree. I think he's awesome. Very, very mysterious character, because he has very much like this presence about him, and he seems really tall. And so he just has this big like presence about him, but it's not super dark of a
mm-hmm.
presence. Like it's just very commanding. And whoever that little, I don't want to say little girl, but the reason why I say little girl is because when I saw, what would you say her name was?
Shin.
Shin. She looks so badass.
Yeah.
Like she just looks so intimidating, and like I don't know if you know the artist Sia.
Oh
But
yeah,
there's like
I was literally going there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it reminded me of. I was like, is this the same girl? Like I never looked it up, but I'm like, is this a girl from the music videos that's now like in Star Wars? Like what a come up, you know?
Yeah. And I think like the other thing, dude, is that, like they literally just gave these two the most badass intro that like never since like Darth Vader showing up in Rogue One, just completely wiping a ship, did we see like Jedi's come on board and they killed everyone on that ship, and it was just like, okay, like we thought we were in a peaceful time, but no, like there's baddies in this universe, man.
Not to be outdone, okay? The very next scene with Ahsoka doing her little Laura Croft Tomb Raider Indiana Jones like action where she's going into this witch's temple totally reminded me of something like Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider or something. It was so cool. And the way that she threw her sabers down and like force spun them around her to cut a perfect circle and drop down, I was like, I was so excited, and I was like, that was so badass. But like that, it was so like it wasn't against anybody. It was just and just so quick, and I was like, that was dope.
There was a TikTok I saw this week, and this is why the internet is like
It already
the best
ruined that
thing in
for
the
you?
world. No, like so she throws the sabers down, right? And she spins it, and they're like, so is Ahsoka's power that she knows how to make a circle with a lightsaber? Because Qui-Gon doesn't know how to do that. And it goes to like episode 1, and it's just like this janky ass circle going through the door.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, no, but I'm glad you said Tomb Raider, because I literally wrote down Ahsoka Tomb Raider. I was like, it's just a very Guardians of the Galaxy, where like Star-Lord is showing up for the treasure and like solving puzzles, and it was a cool little scene. And obviously she gets confronted by bounty hunters, who we get our first little action scene. It was pretty dope, but like I think I was more impressed with the implosion of like the robots. So as they're fighting, they do like this self-destruct thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, like just get out of the way. But like she kept on running, and I was like, how big of an explosion are we gonna get? And then we just see it just completely level like the city and then everything surrounding the area, and I'm just like, whoever put that in a robot has some serious balls, man. Like that, those robots are just walking through a city and could level the city. It's just nuts, man.
I felt the exact same way when she was running. I was like, I think you're far enough. Like, I think you're good. Like, and she was like, keep going. And I'm like, yeah. And just the way that the wave, it almost reminded me of like Independence Day. Ooh. Like when the aliens like attack the cities and stuff, and the wave just kind of expands and keeps going. That's what it reminded me of. I thought it was super cool.
So what I thought was interesting here, and I made a little asterisk to point out, is like, so far at this point of the show, obviously we get Ahsoka. We see Shin and we see Balin. Shin and Balin are new. So as far as I know, I don't remember seeing them in Rebels. I didn't see any notes about them being Rebels, so they're new for the series. Um, Shin and Balin are showing up on the Rebel ships to rescue Morgan, and Morgan is from Mando. So she's the girl with the spear that Ahsoka's fighting in that season.
No way. Okay, so
Yeah,
that kind of answers that question because I was kind of curious if this show is supposed to take place after she was in Mando or not. So that
yeah.
answers that then.
And
Interesting.
this is where I kind of feel silly because like I'm watching this and I'm like, dude, why are they introducing this lady with so much backstory with Ahsoka and like not doing anything about it? So then I looked up the actress and I was like, oh, I'm dumb. Like she was on Mando. Like, okay, so this ties in. So I'm guessing that like after she has that whole showdown and gets the spear from her, that somehow they put her in custody and like that's where we are.
Got it.
But yeah, so those characters really, I mean, if you hadn't watched Rebels, but like where we're at with like a little bit of Clone Wars, and like you're good. But then we jump into like Hu Yang, who's Ahsoka's like sidekick droid, and Hu Yang is introduced in Clone Wars, so you do see him a little later on in the season. There's like
Okay.
an episode where like Padawans are building lightsabers, and that's like Hu Yang's thing, is he helps Padawans build their lightsabers. So that's why he has so much knowledge about stuff like that in the show. But then, if you've never seen Rebels, the next person they introduce is Hera. She's from a Twi'lek family that is actually from the planet of Ryloth. So they have all the tentacles and everything like that. Her dad is literally the leader of the people of Ryloth. So like she's tied in
Oh,
there. So it's again like this whole series of characters that we're introducing, and having seen like 2 seasons of Rebels, I'm like, dude, they did a good job. Like they did a really good job of like weaving this into live action. But again, I sat there watching it and just being like, I'm so interested to talk to Robbie about this because like coming in cold turkey, I'm just like, geez, like it'd be rough.
yeah. So I wrote down because they kept talking about Ezra, and I think we've kind of discussed this before that Ezra's from Rebels, and then all I wrote down is who's this green lady? Because I was like, clearly they know each other.
Yeah.
Clearly, I was fully assuming that she was from Rebels as well, but I was just I don't know. I was very confused with that aspect. A funny piece about Ahsoka's lightsabers too. The fact that she's got dual wielding is just I always have loved that. I think that's incredible. But when I went to Galaxy's Edge, I bought all the cool kyber crystal colors I thought I could. You know what I mean? And one of them I bought was white, and I always absolutely love the way it sounds when I would activate it in my lightsaber. And I didn't realize it's supposed to be because of Ahsoka. Because when she activated her lightsaber, I was like, that's the sound that my lightsaber makes.
Do the kyber crystals make different noises?
Yeah. What? You didn't know this?
No.
Yes. If you bought other kyber crystals when you made your lightsaber, throw them in there. They sound
so
different.
I've got blue, green, and red. So immediately once we're done filming, that's what I'm going to do.
That.
I'm just gonna
do that.
My wife's going to be like, "Why are you playing with your lightsaber?"
I'll grab mine too. Oh no, I think mine's in storage. Dang it.
But yeah. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the rods too when she was fighting those troopers. Do you think they're made out of Beskar because they were stopping a lightsaber?
Yeah, I don't. So like in the video games, like the stormtroopers have similar weapons, and I've never Googled or looked up like what they are, but like we kind of see them in episode 7 where Finn
like
pulls out the lightsaber and one of the stormtroopers pulls out like a battle axe basically.
Right.
But I've always been interested in that of like when did they start doing that, because like that should have been something day one in the Clone Wars that you'd think they'd be like, oh, let's give these to the droids, like
right.
But yeah, I when you look at the show, like obviously you're not going to know what Lothal is, which that's like the home base for the characters on Rebels. Ezra is like one of the main characters of the show, if not the main character of the show, and you kind of watch like his coming of age story where he's just like a Padawan in the beginning, and he's kind of like a street rat, almost like Aladdin is probably the best way to describe him. And then you see him grow up to be like a leader of the rebellion, with like Hera and a few others. The only character that I felt like they did an absolute perfect job of introducing, that if you'd never saw her before, you got it, was Sabine. where I was just like, the speeder chase and her not showing up to the awards ceremony and like just dropping and dipping underneath like the X-wing or whatever the TIE fighter, not TIE fighter, whatever the ship was on the road. Like they captured her personality so perfect to the
Did
point
they?
where I'm like, man, like, yeah, you don't need to watch Rebels. That's who she is. Like you get
She see,
it.
yeah, they made that very apparent. I obviously was able to catch up on that rather quickly. I feel like I had heard of Sabine Wren, and I don't remember how or why, but now I'm super confused because I think it was episode possibly 9 in the Star Wars movies where there was like a Mandalorian type character that was helping them, and
Hmm.
I always thought it was, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting her name from Mandalorian? She ended up getting the dark saber.
Oh, Bo-Katan.
Boca Tan. It was not her, right?
No.
So then I was like, oh, maybe it might be that Sabine girl. And then I don't think it's her either. So I'm like, I don't know who that one is now, but yeah, she was a very interesting, very intriguing character. I kept writing notes like, is she a bounty hunter? Like, is she a Mandalorian? She seems to have a Mandalorian helmet. I was like, what? So then when they kind of confirmed it later in the episode that she is Mandalorian, I was like, oh snap.
That was one of the best lines of the show where they were like complaining about her personality, and like I think it was Hera was like, well, she is Mandalorian.
Yes, and then she made a comment about, well, I'm sure you were like that way to your master as well. And
Yeah, that was something I wasn't fully prepared for, because like, you know, in Rebels you do see Sabine like start to like learn the Force and stuff like that, but obviously being 2 seasons in, I haven't seen like whether or not they show Ahsoka being her master. But I was like, the Ahsoka Sabine like relationships reminded me so much of Anakin and Ahsoka that I was like, this is so cool.
mm,
Where like Anakin was
karma
basically saying, yeah, pretty much karma. Like when your parents say,
to
like, I hope
Ahsoka,
you
yeah,
have a kid just like you. It's like, I
exactly.
hope you get a Padawan just like you. Like that's what happened, and that part was super cool. But
So they did show a picture when they were kind of doing the ceremony, and right before they introduced Sabine, he was like talking like, "Oh, Sabine Wren here to talk to you," and then she's just gone. And there was like a mural on the back wall, and it was very much like styled like the animated show. It looked like,
yeah,
and so are that all? Is that like the whole cast of like Rebels essentially?
yeah. So
Okay,
at the final season, there's basically that painting, and it's all of them together.
got it.
And so Kanan is one of the people in the photos. He's Ezra's like Jedi master, and
Hmm.
then you have Hera, you have Sabine, and then you
I
got
saw a little
Chopper.
cat. Is the
Oh,
Sabine's cat
yeah.
thing?
I don't know if I'm that far into Rebels to tell you what the significance of that was, but then you got the big blue guy who's Zeb, and he
Okay.
showed up in the last season of Mando. Um, Yeah, he was like in a bar with the rebel
Oh.
pilot from Kim's Convenience, and he was basically
Oh.
sitting at the bar. So he was in that. So I'm like, okay, there's a good chance we might see him brought into Ahsoka to like show us Zeb,
Wow.
and then obviously you get Chopper, who we're gonna dive into Chopper
I freaking love
because
Chopper already, dude. I'm telling you.
he's such a
Chopper's my
great character,
boy.
dude.
Oh man.
Like every time they introduce a new droid, I'm like, oh, this is awesome and so much cooler than R2. And then I'm just like, oh man, Chopper. I don't think you can beat him. But
I like
so
Chopper.
we find out like in the story that like what Ahsoka's treasure is. It's a star map leading to like a brand new hidden galaxy that Admiral Thrawn is kind of in solitude, and Sabine again being like Ahsoka when with Anakin, she's like, "Oh yeah, don't let this thing leave the ship." And then Sabine just steals it and takes it off the ship and basically solves the puzzle when Ahsoka's not there. But then obviously we get the bad guy of Shin showing up, and we get a pretty dope lightsaber fight between Shin and Sabine, which I was not fully prepared for.
Neither was I because I had no idea when she just pulled out this lightsaber. I'm like, whoa, whoa, where'd this girl get this freaking lightsaber from? Like, what the heck? She's a Mandalorian with a lightsaber? What's happening? So,
Yeah. Which,
yeah, we
going back to Rebels, that's actually Ezra's lightsaber. And I think
oh,
they talk
really?
about that a little bit, but yeah, she's using Ezra's lightsaber.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
There's
I
a
mean, clearly,
little bit
like,
of love going on there, but I don't think you could say love with like a capital L. I think it's more of like a, hey, what's up?
hey.
What's up,
So
Sabine?
I was gonna ask that because there was like a hologram. Was that supposed to be Ezra?
Yeah, that's Ezra.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
why I
so
assumed.
spoiler alert, like as I understand how Rebels ends is like Ezra takes the sacrificial play and he steers Thrawn's ship out into that galaxy. So
Oh,
Ezra's on the ship with Thrawn, and that's why they're like, we're gonna rescue Ezra so if we go there. Obviously, there's probably more like nuance and depth than what I just said, but like that's my understanding of how Rebels concludes, leading us into where we're at right now.
it's literally what I wrote down. I put, was the person talking in the hologram supposed to be Ezra? He said he defeated Thrawn. Whoa, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I haven't seen it, but I'm like, oh, okay, well, clearly that's how that ends. So yeah, I was asking about the cat. Is that Disney's cute factor in this show? It's
Yeah.
always something.
We're gonna show up to Target next week, and then in the Disney section of Target, there's just gonna be that little
A
cat
cat
hanging
with like
there.
crow feet. I was like, ugh, this thing's weird.
Yeah,
And my daughter's like, it's so cute. I'm like, of
it's so
course you think it's cute.
fluffy.
Yeah.
um, we again, so like we get this lightsaber fight, and then we lead into like the Star Wars, I guess, just like what's going on. So Sabine gets stabbed, same place that Qui-Gon gets stabbed,
R.I.P.
same place that the chick from Obi-Wan, what's her name? Bad girl.
Uh, Riva.
Riva, thank you. Someone in their car is gonna be like, these guys aren't Star Wars fans. Everybody who gets stabbed in the stomach now, like apparently like medical technology is just a lot better than it was in the prequels. Like
Must be. They must have figured it out. Hey, people keep dying to this. We need to figure this out.
yeah. Yeah, they're like, hey, we could solve world peace, but you know what's more important? Fixing lightsaber stabs to the stomach. It's a massive issue.
So, yeah. I mean, first off, it was very cool to see a lightsaber fight already, aside from Ahsoka. And I was very confused because it seemed like Sabine had some sort of training, but at the same time, she was kind of just throwing the lightsaber around a bit. She just didn't seem as experienced with it. So,
Yeah.
that was cool to see. I mean, before that, when they were talking about the Balin and Shin,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, like you said, you mentioned that they were the master and the apprentice. And like, oh, and they were also talking about what's the robot's name? What?
Oh, Hu Young.
Hu Young. He was saying that they were like Jedi. He was like, these are people that have been trained in the Jedi temple, and it seemed like he was kind of aware of lightsabers that were built. And he's like, this one I've never seen before, which I believe he was talking about Shin's. But then he's like, this one I know exactly whose this is because there was only one person in 500 students or 500 years or whatever it was that built a lightsaber this way, and it was Balin. And I was like, oh dang! So now it's like you said, who are these people? Are they? I was going to ask too if they were from Rebels, but
Mm-hmm.
you said they're new, so it's like, are they Jedi turned evil? Are they guns for hire? Are
Ooh.
they?
I
Like,
love the idea of them
who are
being
these
guns
people?
for hire, man.
Right?
Like again, going back to like what we talked about, I think it was last week about like bad guy stories. Um, Jedi's who survived Order 66 and just decided
Yeah.
to be guns for hire. Like, oh, I'm totally into a story like that.
What if they're being like manipulated by this witch lady?
Ooh,
Like maybe
that's
they're not even trying to be bad. Maybe they just are being manipulated.
yeah. You know, that's a side of this that I think is going to be really interesting to see how deep they go because like Dathomir, where these witches are from, that's
Mm-hmm.
the same planet that Maul comes from. So the
Oh,
men
okay.
look like that, and then like the women are the witches of Dathomir.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I'm like, how deep are we going into this? Because the witches have magic in the sense that like it's not the Force, it's magic. And I'm like, I'm very interested to see how kind of like far outfield we get with this.
I was literally thinking that when they were talking about how they're like witches and stuff. I was like, okay, we're in Star Wars. Witches, really? And then I was like, wait, that's like all Jedi are, like wizards, like just
Yeah.
using the Force. Like they can't see anything, but they're moving things and bringing things to them. And like, so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm silly for thinking that way, but
Yeah, like in Jedi Fallen Order, one of the main characters is a witch from Dathomir, and like she can basically create like wormholes where you can jump from place to place, and like almost like Wraith from Apex Legends, where
Yeah.
you jump through a portal, come out the other side. Like she can do stuff like that. She
Oh
can make
wow.
things appear, and like it again. It's something we haven't seen in like live action Star Wars, and I'm like,
That'd be
oh,
so
you know what?
cool.
Like, I'm interested. Let's see where this goes.
I would love to see like a lightsaber fight, like coming through all these little wormholes and stuff. That'd be sick.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like when we were getting Sabine versus Shin in that lightsaber fight at the end, I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a daughter now, but I'm also just like, dude, it's fucking sick. Like, pardon my French, but it's fucking sick that like I grew up with like Luke Skywalker, Anakin, Obi-Wan, but like my daughter's like, dude, there's now I can show her like two badass lightsaber girls having lightsaber fights. I'm just like, oh, it's
Yeah.
really cool. Like, I understand representation kind of gets a bad vibe, and people are like, this isn't my Star Wars, but like as a dad who has a daughter, I'm like, oh, that's pretty dope. Like, I can't wait to show her this when she gets older. Like, you got two badass characters. Granted, one is a murderer, but the other one's cool.
I mean, Ahsoka.
Yeah,
Ahsoka's badass. She's an alien. She's
she's an
badass.
alien.
And
Yeah,
I really like this Shin as a bad guy or bad person, whatever you want to call her. Like, I really like her. From the second I saw her, I was like, that's a badass. Just she looks so intimidating. Like her eyes and just the way she walks around and carries herself. I'm like, dang.
Sia with attitude.
Right, exactly. And another thing that was interesting was I felt like whenever we see somebody that's like a Sith, they're always like, I don't want to say like an alien, but they always like have some sort of like darkness or evil that is very apparent. But these people almost look normal, kind
Yeah.
of like Dooku. Like Dooku just looked normal as heck, and I guess so did Palpatine before he fried himself accidentally.
So, I had to Google this because I saw something about it, but we were talking about their lightsabers and how they were red. So apparently, Balin and Shin's lightsabers are actually orange. So they're not full red. So in order
Like
to
in the
have a
show,
red, yeah, like in the show, it's like an orangish red. So
really?
it's not Vader red. It's like an orangish red. And
Huh.
so the theory behind it is like when you go full Sith, you basically corrupt your kyber crystal, and that's what turns it into red. And so they're like, well, they're not fully corrupted. So like they've got
They
like
haven't killed a bunch of
orangish
kids
red.
yet.
Yeah, that's
That's...
all it takes. But then again, like I don't know how you wipe out an entire like rebel
Ship.
transport ship and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's still orange.
Maybe
Okay.
they weren't killing them. Maybe they were just like chopping limbs off, you know?
uh, they had a pretty good kill count. They
Happy
pretty
day.
much killed that whole ship.
Yeah.
Like there was a scene where like she came to the deck of the bridge of the ship, and I was just like, dude, these guys are awesome. Like some of the best villains we've had, and some of the best new villains. Because a lot of times it feels like we get recycled villains of like Maul, Vader, and it's just the same old song and dance
That's
or
true.
Emperor Palpatine. But like we've got two new villains that we don't know anything about, and it's like they're not Inquisitors, they're not Sith for what we know. They're just anti Jedi.
There's a lot of mystery behind them, and I think that makes them more intriguing
Yeah.
because they're not just sitting there like talking about power or anything immediately. Like there's just so much mystery behind them. Like I said, who are they? Guns for hire? Are they corrupted? Are they like who knows what they could be? They're the bad guys, but are they?
How
What
big
if
of a like M Night Shyamalan twist would that be if we find out Ahsoka's the bad guy and Shin and Balin are like the good guys of the story?
I don't know how they'd make that work, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can hope.
They were the bad guys the whole time. No.
No way. It was all a dream.
I mean, overall, I liked it. It was a good first episode. I definitely have to say, if you're listening to this before watching the show and you've never seen Rebels, you're definitely probably going to struggle a little bit with it. Like, I would totally get it. Having like 2 more seasons of Rebels left, even I struggled with it, where I was like, oh, I don't feel like I should be watching this right now. I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
I was just like, and that's such a weird thing to describe, but like, I literally was watching it and I was just like, I don't know if I want to watch this right now. Like, I feel like I want to finish Rebels. So it'll be interesting when we finish this show. Maybe we go into Rebels and start getting into that, and then like going back to Ahsoka later on and being like, is Ahsoka better once we've watched Rebels? Like,
We'll just treat this as like our New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then we'll go back.
Yeah, we'll go back. But I guess to kind of close it out, if you had to rank episode 1 out of 10, what would it be?
Oh gosh, man, I'm gonna say a solid 7.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair.
I'm intrigued. I'm excited to see more, but I personally was very confused, but I hadn't seen Rebels, so that's where I stand.
I think I would land in an 8. Like, okay. I would definitely give it an 8. It's cool. I love how they transported like the animated characters to live action, and they did such a good job with it. Like, all the characters feel like the animated series.
That's good.
But it wasn't perfect. Like, again, like I was really going into this being like, oh, I don't need to finish Rebels, but now I'm like, no, I should have finished Rebels. Like, and that kind of threw me off a little bit. But
yeah, Master and Apprentice, I was really hoping they were talking about Ahsoka and Anakin, and I was hoping to see some more Anakin, but we didn't yet. Hopefully they'll dive more into that. But I mean,
that's the side we get, man. Like, we get like Anakin is going to be in this. Like, we know he's coming. How is that going to change, and what's that going to impact the story? Like, I can't wait. Maybe we see him in episode 2. Maybe when we watch episode 2, he's in there.
Maybe.
But if you're a good Star Wars fan, you've already watched episode 1 and 2, and you know.
You wouldn't do those separately. What do you mean?
So, but yeah, we'll be diving into episode 2 in a separate video. But yeah, so this was episode 1. Obviously, it was a good first start for Ahsoka. Please let us know in the comment section what you thought about it. If you loved it, if you hated it, tell us. And if you're someone who's seen all of Rebels and all of Clone Wars, let us know how that impacted you. Because as someone that's like halfway in and someone that's never seen Rebels, like, hey, maybe we're just missing out.
Calling me out. But yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. I'm very interested to see somebody who's seen it all the way through and fully understands the full story and is completely caught up. And all of this made 100% sense to you. Let us know what you thought.
100%. So obviously, we're probably going to go watch episode 2 right now. And then we'll do a separate video talking about episode 2. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. May the Force be with us all.